Hello, friends, and welcome. This is See Through. It is a podcast with myself, Achitugopi, as your host. And what we do with this podcast is we attempt to kind of see each other through these scriptural texts, gain some transparency, gain some clarity for ourselves and for the texts that we are reading. So good to be with all of you. If you are joining me through Patreon, thank you. And if you are joining me live on YouTube, also thank you. Let me know how we can stay in touch, It's good to see you. Yesterday, we jumped off and we started reading in preparation for a beautiful festival day known as Nrsimha Chaturdashi, or the appearance of Lord Nrsimha. And we were trying to find out what is this almost kind of like mysterious incarnation or avatar of Lord Krishna or Lord Vishnu. And mysterious, sometimes people think, how could it be mysterious? Lord Nrsimha is well known, but mysterious kind of just means like it's difficult to understand, not necessarily little or unwell known. So welcome. We'll be diving back into that story today. Yesterday we got a view of a demon king named Hiranyakashipu, and we got a chance to see him not so much as a demon, more as a family man, which added another layer and another facet to his personality, which we might not have seen before. And we were enabling the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam to come alive through the retelling of Srimad Bhagavatam done by Krishna Dharma and his wife Chintamani Devi. So we are going to continue reading that together. We'll be continuing from chapter 3 of the 7th canto. So if you would like to read along, I will be posting a link to Amazon where this retelling is able to be found. It's on Kindle Unlimited, so it is kind of free if you have the subscription service for Kindle Unlimited, but it's also available on paperback as a hard copy. It's, like I said, available on Kindle, and I am putting that link in the chat box on YouTube. Those of us who were with us yesterday already kind of know. Ashi, thank you, good to see you. Pat, thank you, good to see you. So nice to be with everybody. Before we begin, let's invoke our sacred space with a few mantras to spread auspiciousness and blessings throughout this reading. Om Ajnanatirmirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindubhyev cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Ugram Viram Mahavishnum Jalantam Sarvatomukam Nrsingham Vishanam Bhadram Mrityur Namamyam. Shri Nrsimha Jaya Jaya Shri Nrsimha Praladesha Jaya Padma Mukha Padma Bringa. So as I said yesterday, I was giving the translation to some of those prayers, and then I left some for today. So as we go along, we'll do more prayers to Lord Nrsimha. We'll give more translation to those prayers, and we'll kind of get a little bit more in depth with praying to this Lord who is also known as the Great Protector. And of course, we'll see why. And so Sri Nrsimha, Jaya Nrsimha, Jaya Jaya Sri Nrsimha. All glories to Lord Nrsimha. Praladesha, Jaya Padma, Mukha Padma Bringa, who is the Lord of Pralad Maharaj, who we will find out who that is in a little while. And like a honeybee is always engaged in drinking in the nectar of the lotus-like face of the goddess of fortune. So the goddess of fortune is none other than Lakshmi Devi, who is always the consort of Lord Vishnu. So we can understand that we're going to have a lot of characters coming into play in this story. Yesterday, like I said, we heard about Hiranyakashipu and his family. He is kind of in the midst of a tragedy. His brother, his twin brother, Hiranyaksha, has been killed by Varahadev, who is Lord Vishnu, who took the form of a boar. Quite a wonderful and heroic pastime. But for Hiranyakashipu, this was not a happy and heroic pastime because his brother died. So he's trying to console his family, and in the process of consoling his family, he in essence gives so much Vedic spiritual teachings. The kicker is he gives all of these Vedic spiritual teachings. He's the son of a great sage, a great Brahmin. And so he has learned all of this from his father, he says. But we spoke yesterday about getting caught up in the flowery words that someone says. They might say all the right things spiritually, but when you look at their actions, that's when things get really clear. That's where we get to some transparency, right? In this see-through podcast. What are we really doing? So not only are our words spiritual when we come together in a podcast like this, but then our actions line up. Because we are dedicating time each day, each time we come together for some spiritual activities. And so Hiranyakashipu was speaking all of this like learned spiritual philosophy, but he had no faith in it, so he wasn't practicing it. His actions were not going to line up. And so this is the most important thing. What really gives that power to our spiritual practices is faith. Do we have faith in it? Are we allowing our hearts to have faith that the process works? It does work. Any of the spiritual processes, they work if we give our hearts to it. If we really allow ourselves to tap in, dive in, and really give ourselves to that process. Setting time aside to have prayer, have some communion with the divine spiritual Lord of our hearts, to really connect with that spiritual divine entity as a person. Do we really believe that we can have a relationship with God? It is so possible. It is promised. We all have that unbreakable. My wonderful grand spiritual master Srila Prabhupada says that this relationship with God is unvanquishable, which means that there's nothing you can do that will break that relationship. Even if you have done abominable activities, one, I don't think they're as bad as what we're going to hear with Hiranyakashipu, but even if they were, it's not like you cannot be redeemed. God is simply waiting to bring us back into that embrace. God is simply waiting all the time with a divine embrace, waiting for us to make the decision that, okay, I want to stop trying to be the controller because it's making me miserable, right? What is actually making us miserable? It's this identification with this idea that I can control, I can be the Lord and Master of everything that I see, or at least something that I see. I should be able to control some things, right? And we find that sometimes our anxieties ramp up when we feel the most out of control. Right? We feel like our lives are not within our control, and then we're grasping desperately. And so this will create a lot of this dysphoric attitude, and we find ourselves unhappy and miserable. But if we surrender that attitude and finally realize, you know what? I'm not in control. And that's not a bad thing. Because the person who is in control is my dearmost friend. The person who is in control is my best friend. And they are not looking for me to be miserable. So this is going to be a story where Bhakti is not going to tell you that you won't suffer. And this is common for all the great religions of the world. They're not going to tell you that you won't suffer. That is going to happen. There are going to be hurdles and obstacles and miseries that come upon us. There's going to be grief. There's going to be sadness. Now we have the tools on how to deal with that. Our spirituality should be giving us the tools on how to deal with that sadness and that grief with empathy, with sympathy, with love, with a divine, unconditional mindset. So that no longer are we asking, why me, why me, why me? But we are understanding God is always working in my best favor. God is always working for my highest good. And nothing can stop that. So, friends, before we begin, I kind of just want to remind myself and all of us that there is a divine purpose for all of our lives. It's not just my life. It's not just some other preacher's life. For all of our lives, there is a divine purpose. And our Lord is spreading his divine hand over all of our lives. There is so much work that God has left to do through you. And you might think, well, how? I'm not doing anything great or big. You don't have to be. Just by being who you are, with faith, with determination, with character, God is working. He is working through your life. Not just working on your life, but he's working through your life. Your life will become the testimony of blessings and miracles for someone else. Bhagavatam is filled with so many stories of great souls whose lives and whose obstacles and hurdles and how they overcame them have become testimonies and miracles and blessings for the lives of others. Will we take up that mantle? Will we be brave enough to take up that challenge and say, you know what, Lord? Okay, show them what you can do through me. Show them how you save us through me. Show them how you love us through me. Which means there's going to be some sorrow. There's going to be some obstacles because everybody's going through the obstacles. And if we're going to overcome them with faith, with prayer, then there's got to be obstacles, unfortunately. And so it doesn't always feel great. But as one of our friends, as Ashi is saying, God can turn a test into a testimony, which is so true and really good. I almost want to rename this episode. But instead, I'll name tomorrow's episode, Turning Test into Testimony. So I am so eager to dive back into the pages of this retelling of Srimad Bhagavatam with all of you and find out how God turns tests into testimonies, because he's doing it. One last little snippet before I begin. 500 years ago, there was a saint, and his name was Sanatan. He was a Goswami. He was a renunciate. He was kind of like a traveling monk. And he worshipped Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya is another incarnation of Sri Krishna who arrived to show the extent of what it was like to be a devotee, to be a spiritual seeker. And so Sanatan Goswami was very, very dear to Lord Chaitanya. But Sanatan Goswami at one point came down with a very, very bad skin disease. And Sanatan had been worshiping Krishna for pretty much his whole life. So much of his life. And he'd really dedicated himself to the process. And so one would think, really? This is a saint? Why would God give a saint a skin disease? The skin disease got so bad that Sanatan at one point thought, better I give up my life. I can't deal with this. He became so despondent and so depressed that he thought of giving up his own life. He went to a beautiful place named Jagannath Puri in order to see Lord Chaitanya in Odisha. And when he got there, he didn't say much to Lord Chaitanya, but Lord Chaitanya began speaking to him immediately, and he said, you know, what you are planning to do is quite criminal. Sanatan was taken aback. How does he know what I'm planning to do? I haven't said anything, right? But we all know the Lord is dwelling within the heart. He knows what's going on with us. So the way he spoke to such a depressed Sanatan is something that I hold close to my heart on my darkest days. On the days when I feel I can't go any longer, on the days when even I feel like this world would be better off without me. Have we ever felt that way? Have any of us ever felt like, you know what, I can't do this anymore. This place would just be better off without me. Well, then this message is for you also. So Sri Chaitanya said, what you're planning to do is quite criminal. Don't you understand that your body belongs to me? You are my property. And so you are trying to take away my own property, which is a criminal act in and of itself. But more than that, I have so much work left to do through you. If you leave, how will I conduct my work through you? There's so much left for you to do. And then Lord Chaitanya would enlist another friend of theirs named Haridas. Haridas, you tell him. Maybe he'll listen to you. Tell him that this is not what I want. Can you imagine coming face to face with God who is pleading with you? Just stay. I have so much left to do through you. So I was holding on to that, and I've been holding on to that for so long. When the days get rough and it feels like there's nothing but clouds darkening the sky of my heart, I remember the Lord's words, I have so much work left to do through you. Don't you see? So Sanatan decided to stay, thankfully. And he goes on to write so many books that become a lighthouse for Vaishnavas and spiritual seekers within the Bhakti tradition. Friends, we never know what our destiny has in store. And the moments where life seems the darkest, if we can hang on just a little while longer, we might create things, stories, commentaries. We might allow the spiritual path to be seen for others. We might become that lighthouse. And so even today, Sanatan Goswami is remembered. He is prayed to as a great saint who can help us on the devotional path. You should never think that this world is better off without you. Because even if no one else sees it, our dearmost friend has so much left to do through you. Our dearmost friend knows who you are, and you are valuable. You are not just another number. You are not just a throwaway. Our dearmost friend knows you personally. God knows you intimately. If we had an intimate relationship with the president or the prime minister of our country, we would feel proud of that. Be proud of your relationship with God. Divinity knows you personally. Please be proud of that. All right. So I feel like that was a great introduction. Now we can jump in and find out a little bit about what's happening more in this story. So this is chapter 3. Hiranyakashipu's attempt to become immortal. Isn't this something we're all trying to do? Trying to become immortal. Let's see. So Yudhishthir, who is hearing this story, because he wanted to know, is God really impartial? And why would this demon king want to kill his own son? Yudhishthir shook his head I still do not understand why Hiranyakashipu wanted to kill his son. Narada, who was narrating this story, said, everything will become clear soon enough. Even though Hiranyakashipu spoke about the perishability of the body, he thought if he could gain the yogic perfections, he could make his own body eternally strong and youthful. He was very ambitious. He desired to become free from old age, disease, and death. And he also wanted to become the unconquerable ruler of the entire universe, including even Brahma's planet. Isn't this all of us? Right? We're all trying to become eternally strong and youthful, trying to become free from old age, disease, and death. And so sometimes I read these wonderful learning lessons, right? These pastimes, and I think, not so different. It's not so. I'm not so different from the demonic mindset, right? There's not much of a difference there. The only difference is maybe I'm a little more willing to surrender to divine will. But let's see what happens. How did he plan to do that? Asked Yudhisthira with a wry smile. He went to a valley on Mandara Hill, where he performed the arduous austerity of standing on his toes, looking up with his arms raised. He was sure if he maintained this position, he would eventually attain perfection. So this is austerity, right? This is yoga. It also almost seems like a challenge on Survivor. You ever try, and I've tried this as a kid, when I read these stories, I'm like, let me try it. If you stand on the tips of your toes with your arms outstretched and looking up, and you just try to maintain that for even 5 minutes, oh my God, your calves are burning, your toes are hurting, the arches of your feet are cramping up, your back is cramping up. There are muscles that are grumbling about this, muscles that I didn't even know I had. It's so difficult. And you might think, like, it's so simple, he wasn't really doing much, but to be able to hold that pose, my God, is a big deal. And these are the demons. The demons were willing to do some self-sacrifice in order to get what they want. And sometimes, as spiritualists, we often think, why do we have to take up a fast or do some austerity or something like that? Why should we self-sacrifice? But even the demons were willing, and they understood that sometimes you have to give in order to get. You have to give in order to control that mind, in order to focus the mind on your ambitions, whether they be material or spiritual. And so I've been trying to adopt this attitude. Let me focus my mind on what's really important if I want these spiritual goals. Do I want them? Do I even want them as much as the demons want their immortality and their power? And if not, why not? Why don't I want my spiritual goals, which should be the most important things in my life? Why don't I want them as much as the demons want their power? It's a good question to ask ourselves. So he was sure if he maintained this position, he would eventually attain perfection. After many years, right? Unbroken years he was standing this way. A radiance as bright as the sun's rays at the time of dissolution emanated from his hair. When the gods saw what was happening, they all returned to their respective homes. It had become dangerous to travel in outer space. The fire and smoke coming from Hiranyakashipu's head engulfed both the upper and lower planets. Everywhere became extremely hot. The power of his austerities agitated the rivers and oceans, mountains and islands trembled, and stars and planets fell from their orbits. All directions were ablaze. Yudhishthir looked alarmed. How was the universe saved? Narada said, listen to what transpired. So there is an immense amount of power that comes from many things that we can't see. Just by doing this kind of yogic posture and austerity, it created a heat that was engulfing planets. It created an effulgence that was brighter than the sun's. It created this agitation that made the oceans tremble and the earth rumble. We can have faith in this. It's like, well, I can't see it. It's like, yeah, but gravity is working. And there are people who are learning how to manipulate gravity as energy. And that's happening. And we can't see it, but it's happening. So I urge all of us to drop our modern day cynicism, right? Because we can be very, very cynical, especially when hearing these pastimes and think, that can't be real. But what if it is? What if it's all real? Because there's so much that we cannot see that is at work here, even in this material world. And so Hiranyakashipu is doing amazing things. We have heard of yogis who can do amazing, incredible, inexplicable things. But it's happening. So some of them might be charlatans or fakes, but not all of them. Some of them are really doing some incredible things. So we can have faith that our spiritual practices are generating magic, even if we can't see it. So stick with it, and before long, like learning a language, like learning how to ride a bike, like learning a new skill, we will see the magic begin to unfold before our eyes. We have to keep with it. So this is a call for all of us to stick with those spiritual practices. Apsaras and Gandharvas ran screaming through the streets of Amravati, which is the city of Lord Indra, the king of the heavens, their skin burning. Within his palace, Indra clutched his throat. I can barely breathe. The air is burning my lungs. Brihaspati, the guru of the Devas, wiped the sweat from his forehead. Immediately evacuate everyone. We must retreat to Brahmaloka. As Indra led the exodus out of Amravati, he saw celestials fleeing other planets, including the moon, the sun, and even the worlds of the sages. All of them were heading toward Brahma's planet. They arrived there and set up camp while their leaders entered Brahma's palace to inform him of the situation. Indra spoke on everyone's behalf. Bowing low to Brahma, he said, O Lord of the gods, master of the universe, we have all fled here because of Hiranyakashipu's severe austerities. The fire emanating from him is creating havoc throughout the universe. O great chief, O great one, chief of the universe, if you think it proper, kindly stop this disturbance before everything is destroyed and all of us are dead. Hiranyakashipu is undergoing terrible austerity. Even though I am sure you know his plan, kindly listen to what he has in mind. He recognizes how you became the universal creator and the most important person by dint of your severe austerities, mystic yoga practice, and meditation. He believes that since both he and time are eternal, he will persist in executing similarly difficult austerities until he can occupy your post. He then plans to reverse the established orders in the universe. He wants the impious to flourish and the pious to suffer. My lord, he will not stop until he has usurped you. Nothing else, not even the lordship of Dhruvaloka, will satisfy him. O Lord, we have heard from reliable sources that Hiranyakashipu is performing severe austerities even as we speak. Please do not delay. While you are still the lord of the 3 planetary systems, please do what you think is appropriate to stop him. So Hiranyakashipu wanted to reverse the laws of karma so that bad karma would happen to good people and then the good karma would happen to the bad people. Not fair at all. But this is what happens when a demon tries to be in charge. It's not great. Brahma's 4 faces remained impassive. The sun god fell to his knees and pleaded with him, fearing he may be disinterested in protecting his position. O Lord, while you rule this universe, the cows and Brahmins are protected, and consequently others can enjoy material happiness, opulence, and good fortune. However, if Hiranyakashipu occupies your position, everyone will suffer. Brahma agreed. To protect others, it behooved him to act. He turned to his attendants and said, Brigu, Daksha, summon the chief sages. You will all accompany me to Hiranyakashipu's hermitage. Soon after, Brahma peered down from his swan airplane as he flew over Mandara Hill. "Can you spot him?" he called to his associates. They flew over the region again and again. There was no sign of the demon. At last, Daksha noticed waves of heat emanating from a giant anthill. "My lord," he called, "I think he is beneath that anthill. Like a cloud-covered sun, he emanates heat born of his austerities." They descended to the area of the immense anthill, and Brahma called out, "O son of Kashyapa, please come out. All good fortune to you. You have perfected your austerities, and therefore I am here to give you a benediction. Ask of me whatever you desire, and I shall try to fulfill your wish." The anthill quavered and fell apart. A huge skeletal hand thrust out, followed by bony feet, and finally, before them stood a gigantic skeleton. So Hiranyakashipu, throughout his austerities, had turned into a skeleton, and he was still performing the austerities. How incredible even is this demon? "Greetings, Brahma. I am Hiranyakashipu." With this, he knelt and lowered his head. Brahma looked shocked. He murmured to his associates, "Just see, he's been standing here for so long, the ants have devoured his skin, fat, flesh, and blood." Turning to Hiranyakashipu, he said, "I am astonished by your endurance. Despite being eaten by all kinds of worms and ants, you are keeping your life air circulating within your bones. This is certainly wonderful." Brahma indicated the sages who accompanied him. "Even great saints like Brigu cannot perform such severe austerities, nor in the future will anyone be able to match your feat. Who within the three worlds can imagine keeping themselves alive without even drinking water for 100 celestial years?" And then we come to find out trying to make because there's a footnote that will tell us how long 100 celestial years is. However, for some reason, the footnote is not working on my computer. Of course it's not. So 100 celestial years is they're the years of the Devas, which are not like our years. They're much, much longer to us. So we can only imagine how long Hiranyakashipu was standing there. And like I said, I can't do it for 5 minutes, let alone doing it for 5 minutes and having bugs eating and biting at me until they devour all of my skin. "My dear son of Diti, with great determination, you have done what even the most powerful celestial sages cannot do. Therefore, you have brought me under your control. Even though I am an immortal and you are mortal, I am prepared to give you any benediction you desire. Rest assured, your audience with me will not go in vain." Brahma lifted his kamandalu, or his water pot. So we'll see great sages, and especially Lord Brahma, he has many hands, 4 of them, but in one of them he carries a water pot of the sages. So he sprinkled some water. So he lifted his kamandalu to sprinkle spiritual water over Hiranyakashipu. As soon as the water touched him, his bones, muscles, tissues, blood, organs, and skin were restored. Hiranyakashipu stood up in delight. He examined his arms, legs, and chest, which had the hue of molten gold. He looked and felt more vital than ever before. He struck his chest with his fists, which resembled thunderbolts. "I feel wonderful," he exclaimed, "like a young man." He glanced up at Lord Brahma, who hovered just above the ground on the back of his swan carrier. Smiling from ear to ear, Hiranyakashipu offered his prostrated obeisance before Brahma. "Thank you," he exclaimed again and again. Brahma smiled and raised a hand in benediction. "Rise, best of demons. I shall offer you boons." Hiranyakashipu leapt up. Seeing that Brahma was ready to grant his desires, he became overwhelmed with jubilation. His eyes filled with tears, and his whole body shivered with joy. Folding his hands, he prayed in a faltering voice. I offer you my respectful obeisance, Lord Brahma, for you are the supreme person of this universe. At the end of each of your days, ignorance engulfs the entire universe, but at the beginning of the following day, you revive it by your power using the modes of nature, which are under your control. I offer you my obeisance because you are the first person in the cosmos. Your knowledge and intelligence developed this universe. You cause everything that exists within it. You are the Lord of all the universe's moving and non-moving living entities. You control everyone's life airs, consciousness, and senses. You are the Vedas that give knowledge of ritual sacrifice, and you inspire the Brahmins who perform the sacrifices. You are also the supersoul within all living beings, eternal, omniscient, and transcendental to time and space. You are time, which reduces everyone's lifespan, but remains the unchanging witness and controller of all beings. Hiranyakashipu gazed up at the golden, four-headed deity. Lord Brahma famously has four heads. The demon had little respect for any universal authority, but as the supreme person in the universe, Brahma could grant infallible boons. He seemed different from the treacherous Vishnu, whom he would never worship. So Hiranyakashipu's respect is conditional. His devotion is conditional. He's going to offer it, but only if it serves his own purpose. He spoke in reverential tones, accepting the Creator God as the all-powerful controller. Everything in the universe is a part of you, he continued. The Vedas are your body. Although you are transcendental to the material world, it comes from your womb, and you control it. My lord, you always live in your abode, but by expanding as the universal form, you simultaneously experience the sensations of the material world. You are all-pervading Brahman. You are the supersoul in all beings. You are the oldest and supreme being. I offer you my respectful obeisance, for you possess three unlimited energies: spiritual, material, and marginal. Brahma listened in silence as Hiranyakashipu finished his eulogy and began to make his requests. My lord, you can give the best benedictions. Therefore, please bless me, that I may never die at the hands of any living creature created by you. Brahma raised his hand in blessing. Hiranyakashipu hesitated momentarily. He wanted more boons, which would make him invulnerable even to death by natural causes. My lord, please also grant that I may not die either within or outside of any residence, neither during the daytime nor at night, neither on the ground nor sky, as well as not dying at the hands of any creature created by you. I also desire not to die by any weapon, nor by any human or animal. Brahma nodded in acquiescence. So we are now seeing, so many of my friends have said that Hiranyakashipu is creating an insurance plan against death, right? He's trying to cover all of his bases. In many versions, Hiranyakashipu first asks for immortality, and Lord Brahma says, I can't do that for you. Even though Lord Brahma says technically he is immortal, his lifespan does come to an end. And so he says, I can't give you what I don't have. I can't give you true immortality. So he's asked for something else. And so now Hiranyakashipu has to find a way to circumvent and try to get the immortality that he wants without it being actual immortality. So as we've seen, many demons, so many demonic personalities will be trying to artificially kind of like prolong their lives, but for the sake of evil, for the sake of not surrendering to God, for the sake of causing misery to God's worshipers. So, the reason I say that is because we could think, then is just prolonging your life, is that like an evil act in itself? No. It depends on how we're living it. It depends on how we are surrendering. It depends on our desire to surrender. If we have a desire to surrender, to God and perform godly activities, then that prolonging of a life is an offering to the Supreme. If we desire to prolong our lives for demoniac motives, then of course it's going to be an act of evil that everyone is going to want to vanquish. So just the act of prolonging our lives is not something that we can, like, it's not like a black and white decision, you know? It's not like, oh, never try and prolong your life. Otherwise, why would we ever go to doctors? Why would we ever take medicine? Why would we ever wear glasses? Why would we try to fix anything about ourselves? But the reason we are doing it is so that we can be better servants, so that we can be here and try to serve a divine will, a divine mission, that divine purpose that the Lord still has to act through our lives. Hiranyakashipu nodded his eyebrows in thought. Vishnu was tricky. He could not leave any loophole by which the wretched deity might slay him. Lord, grant that nothing alive or otherwise can kill me. Grant that no god, demon, or naga serpent can slay me. Please grant me the same unrivaled powers and lordship over the universe and the gods that you possess. Give me all the mystic powers and grant that none of them will diminish or be lost in time. So, how incredible. He has asked for all of this, and now we are into chapter 4, which is named Hiranyakashipu Terrorizes the Universe. Loud gasps arose from the kings and sages. Yudhishthir asked the question on everyone's mind. Did Lord Brahma grant all these boons? Yes, he did, replied Narada. Why? Surely he knew the demon would misuse his powers, Yudhishthir asked. Hiranyakashipu had performed extremely difficult austerities which satisfied Brahma. Yudhishthir looked puzzled. Brahma practically made him immortal. Who else has ever received such a benediction? What did he do next? Yes, such a boon is rare, said Narada. Listen as I tell the story. Brahma sat on his swan carrier, hovering slightly above Hiranyakashipu's towering frame, a smile touching the corner of his lips. The demon hoped for immortality, but no boon could protect him from Vishnu. Brahma said, The boons you have asked for are very difficult for any man to obtain. However, since I have promised to fulfill all your desires, I shall grant them on this one occasion. Hiranyakashipu knelt before the god. Oh, glories to Lord Brahma, he cried, the giver of infallible benedictions. The demon recited eloquent prayers, worshipping Brahma as he and his entourage ascended toward the heavens. Hiranyakashipu's powerful new body shone with a golden luster like a god. His mind, however, was dark with thoughts of revenge. He was intent on destroying Vishnu for killing his brother. Taking to the skies, he swiftly returned to his palace and summoned his generals. He immediately led them in a military campaign to conquer the 3 planetary systems. His troops overran every planet in the universe and seized the rulers. They bound them and dragged them before Hiranyakashipu, who stripped them of all of their powers and appropriated their authority. Humans, Gandharvas, Garudas, Nagas, Siddhas, Charanas, Vidyadharas, the celestial sages, Yamaraj, the Manus, Yakshas, Rakshasas, Pisachas, and Bhutas all came under his control. Yikes, this is actually not good. The famous Nandana gardens of the heavens enchanted the demon, and he decided to take up residence in Indra's opulent palace. He strode into its vast assembly hall, gazing around in admiration. The demon laughed. Ha ha! So this is the craftsmanship of Vishvakarma. Why, it is so lavish that it seems to be the residence of the goddess of fortune. To the sound of victorious trumpets and the rolling of drums, Hiranyakashipu ascended the coral steps leading into the palace. How beautiful is that? Can you imagine reddish coral steps? These steps made out of this semi-precious stone. It's really amazing. He nodded approvingly at the emerald-embedded floors, the crystal walls and Vaidurya stone columns, beautifully decorated canopies, adorned ruby-bedecked seats. Hiranyakashipu entered his new bedchamber. The silk bedding, as white as foam, was fringed with pearls. The ladies curtsied gracefully as he approached. Hiranyakashipu gently raised the chins of some of those nymphs and admired their extraordinary beauty. They smiled nervously, showing their beautiful teeth. Other ladies hurried to bring him wine and refreshments, and as they did so, their ankle bells tinkled melodiously. Hiranyakashipu allowed these women to wander at ease throughout the palace, their faces reflecting in the gem-studded walls. So this is the heavens. There's so much wealth here. However, he showed a very different demeanor to the gods, treating them like menial servants, often beating them or shouting at them. They had to bow down and offer obeisance at his feet whenever he passed. He would frequently kick or whip them for no reason. Dwelling thus in Indra's former palace, Hiranyakashipu ruled the universe with an iron hand. He enjoyed strong wines and liquors, and his coppery eyes constantly rolled in a drunken stupor. Despite his degraded behavior because of his past austerities, all the gods, except for Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu, had to worship and serve him. Because of his great mystic powers, Hiranyakashipu could control everyone in all the planetary systems. In his court, Narada and the Vidyadharas accompanied the Gandharvas, Vishvavasu, and Tumburu in singing his glories. Wow, imagine Narada being forced to sing the glories of Hiranyakashipu. How crazy. So they had to sing his glories as Apsaras danced for his pleasure. The strict followers of Varnashram performed sacrifices for his pleasure, accompanied by extravagant gifts. Hiranyakashipu accepted all the sacrificial oblations for himself and gave none to the gods. Out of fear of him, all the islands of Bhumandal, the earth, provided food grains as profuse as the milk of Surabhi cows, and the inhabitants of outer space also delivered wondrous gifts. The 7 oceans of Bhumandal, along with their tributaries, provided many varieties of gems and jewels for his pleasure. He regularly sported in the valleys between the mountain ranges of Bhumandal, where trees provided fruits and flowers abundantly in all seasons. The demon was so powerful that he single-handedly performed all the gods' functions. So there are gods in charge of wind, rain, fire, the earth even, justice, and he was performing all of their functions. Many months passed, but despite his unrivaled power and supremacy, Hiranyakashipu felt dissatisfied at heart. So my dear Guru Maharaj speaks about how greed never satisfies the heart. We might feel depressed, especially in this age of social media when we are constantly comparing what we have with what we think others have, with what we are being shown that others have, right? And we always think they've got it better. They've got it easier. Why is my life so hard? If I just had what they had, it would be so much easier. Grass is always greener on the other side. But my Guru Maharaj was saying that for Hiranyakashipu, he could control the weather. If he wanted it a nice 70 to 78 degrees, it was always going to be a nice, calm, cool, spring, balmy day. It was going to be nice and pleasant, and everything that he ever wanted was at his fingertips, and yet his heart was unsatisfied. So just having the things, it won't do it for us. We can learn from this demon. He has tried to secure his own happiness by so many boons, by getting all this power, by being the controller. Our minds will try to tell us, be the controller. It'll give you everything you want. Control your life, control all of it. It won't. Hiranyakashipu was so dissatisfied. So then what brings satisfaction to the heart? Oftentimes, It is service. We see many times, right, that when people are really dissatisfied and really depressed, sometimes what they get is a pet. But that pet requires service. They get a partner. That partner requires service. We want to give and receive love. That is a form of service. And so when we think we can get everything we want, really, what we have is a desire to serve. Sometimes our desire to control everything is a form of our disappointments coming out, right? We've been so disappointed. We've been so depressed by others and their actions toward us that we think being able to control everything will keep me from being hurt again. It will protect my heart. But what if, and I say this as much to myself as I do to anybody else, what if we could lean in to service as a way to heal our hearts, as a way to stop or curb our depression? What if we could lean in to giving and receiving love? It's scary because people are fallible. They're going to make mistakes. They very well are going to hurt us either on purpose or by accident. But we can put our supreme friend in the center. And when we start really giving service in a mood of devotion and spiritual love, the Lord protects us. He's going to protect our hearts. And we can pray. We can pray for that. Oh Lord, as I try to circumvent the depression and the anxiety with acts of service, with acts of giving and receiving love, you please protect my heart. It's all riding on you, Lord. And I know I don't want to be hurt again. I don't want to be disappointed again. But I can't close off my heart either. And so because I cannot close off my heart, I need you to protect it while I continue to serve. So, Hiranyakashipu is not going to be of service. So he's going to find that he's going to be frustrated. Because really what the heart's yearning for is to be of service, to give and to receive love. Sitting one day with a celestial nymph of exquisite beauty on his knee, while another fanned him, he sighed wantonly. What else could he find to amuse him? Snapping his fingers, he beckoned his servant. Indra, dressed as a servant, obediently approached the throne and bowed. How can I serve you, Lord? Sing for me. Indra bowed his head and pressed his hands together, grinding his teeth as he turned away. How humiliating! But what could he do? Brahma had made the demon practically invincible. The god cleared his throat and sang. After a minute, Hiranyakashipu lashed out with his foot and sent Indra sprawling. He laughed raucously. You croak like a frog, Indra. Surya blazed up in a fury and made as if to rush at Hiranyakashipu, but Chandra held him back. Do not be foolish. We can never overcome him. With difficulty, Suryadev, Lord of the Sun, restrained himself. Chandra was right. The demon was too strong. He remembered hearing from Narada how he and his equally powerful brother Hiranyaksha had been Vaikuntha residents once upon a time, cursed by the 4 Kumara brothers. That made them mighty enough, but with the addition of Brahma's blessings, Hiranyakashipu was unstoppable. So we are now hearing that Hiranyakashipu and his brother Hiranyaksha had previously been devotees, worshippers of Lord Vishnu. That's a story for another time. Otherwise, we'll never be able to get to the height and the climax, the pinnacle, the summit of this wonderful pastime in time. Noticing Surya's distress, Hiranyakashipu spoke to him in a mocking voice. You look eager to please me. Come, alleviate my boredom with some acrobatics. That night, when the demon slept, Indra, Surya, Chandra, Vayu, Agni, and other principal gods consulted together in their servants' quarters. Oh no. So Indra was the king of the heavens, Surya is the lord of the sun, Chandra is the lord of the moon, Vayu is the predominating deity of the wind, and Agni the deity of fire. So all of these elemental celestials are coming together and they live in servants' quarters. It's like taking all the prime ministers of all the different places and all of the most important dignitaries and making them prisoners. How can we continue to live like this? It is intolerable, protested Indra. There's nothing we can do to stop him. We're lucky to be alive, said Chandra. They sat with their heads hung down. Then Surya suggested, let us petition Lord Vishnu to intervene and save us. Do you think I have not been doing that? Said Indra. I'm constantly praying to him, but he does not respond. Ah, ha, ha. Do any of us feel like this? We think or we hear, oh, let us petition Lord Vishnu. And then we think, don't you think I've been doing that? Somebody comes to us and says, you should pray your way out of your situation. We're thinking, don't you think I've been doing that? I've been doing it. He's not listening. What am I supposed to do? Let's see what the gods do. Because it can be so frustrating, especially when we are in the midst of trouble. Some of the other gods nodded their heads morosely, confirming that they had the same experience. Agni said, let us fast and renounce sleep. With our minds completely controlled, we should constantly pray to the Lord. We must remain hopeful that he will hear us and rescue us. Accepting this advice, the gods performed severe penance while constantly praying within themselves. We offer prostrated obeisance to that direction where the Supreme Lord resides, where the great saints go, from where having gone they never return. So they really revved up their austerities and they continued praying again with faith. They didn't let their faith be broken, even though they felt like they had not heard a response from the Lord already. They said, let us gather together and pray with doubled strength together with faith. It's amazing that even the Devas could keep their faith. Let us remember that. And remember that sometimes, even when we don't hear the Lord, let us keep the faith. Let us gather together, gather your friends and ask them, will you pray with me? I am having a rough time, but pray with me. And if we all pray together, I'm sure the Lord will hear us. If we pray with our attention and focus fixed on our dearmost friend, let us pray together. This is Sankirtan. Kirtan together, glorifying our Lord together, with words, with song, with our actions, with our minds and our hearts. We come together and we petition the Lord to show his mercy in our lives. But that key is faith. Weeks passed and the gods became emaciated and weak, but they continued praying. So it wasn't that the answer came immediately. Then one night, they heard the deep and soothing voice of Vishnu. Most learned and intelligent gods, I wish you well. Continue to engage in my service. Discuss my glories. Chant my holy names and offer me prayers. For this is the way to attain good fortune for all men. I know of Hiranyakashipu's activities, and I shall surely end them soon. Be patient. The startled gods looked excitedly at each other. The Lord had heard them. He was going to rescue them. They fell to their knees. Oh Lord, please save us quickly, begged Indra. You gods represent me and are emblems of Vedic culture, Vishnu reassured them. Anyone who out of envy does not respect you, the scriptures, cows, Brahmins, Vaishnavas, or religious principles, will soon meet with destruction. You just need to wait a while until Hiranyakashipu assaults my great devotee, Prahlad, his son. This small child will be gentle and with no trace of hostility in his heart toward anyone, and his devotion to me will be extraordinary. When Hiranyakashipu tries to hurt Prahlad, I will quickly appear and kill him. The gods bowed to the unseen Lord, and feeling assured that Hiranyakashipu was as good as dead, they returned to their quarters and rested. So God hears their prayers and he says, I will come save you. Not yet, but I will. And so how many times do we think, we've been praying and first we haven't heard God, and then we start to see a glimmer of hope. Maybe God has heard my prayers. And then we still have to be more patient. This is the way of blessings. Even the gods have gone through this. Even the celestial devas, the demigods, have gone through this. And they are rulers of big planets and elemental forces that we could not even dream of. But even they have to be patient and wait on their blessings. So if God is asking you to have patience and is asking you to wait, this is not a curse. God is not antagonistic toward you. This is the way of blessings. It is keeping our determination, keeping our character, keeping our faith, keeping our focus through that tunnel. That is the way of blessings. We walk in faith and we are protected. And so these gods are being protected, but they even still have to be patient. So please do not think God is being harsh toward you if he asks you to be patient. When he asks me to be patient, when he asks all of us to be patient, because he will. We will be praying for things that we want so bad, and God will say, no problem, but be patient. I am working something out in your favor. Just be patient. Can we have faith still? Do we really believe? Do we believe? Do we think that this is possible? Do we believe in these pastimes? I do, and we all should, because we place our belief in so many things every day. Let us take that risk and put our faith in spirituality. Let's see the magic that it brings us. And we might not see the magic at first, but with patience and determination, it will build our spiritual character. And when that spiritual character is unbreakable, we will see blessings everywhere, even in the most difficult obstacles and opportunities. We will see blessings. And so we will understand later on when we get provoked, right? When we are being provoked towards envy and resentment, bitterness and anger, we will start to see it differently. My mind is trying to get me, but I won't give in because I walk in faith. I believe in my relationship with my supreme, dearmost friend. I will not let the mind sway me. I will not let this obstacle bring me down because I know my Lord is working in my life. Instead of the obstacles, we will see opportunities for blessings to enter into our lives. We will see a way around and through those blessings. As I say this, I'm saying it with conviction, but I'm saying this as a work in progress. I know I still get provoked. I know my mind still runs away with me. Sometimes my mind is telling me, you can't do this. Who do you think you are to be preaching all this, walking in faith? You fall apart every other day. But friends, falling apart doesn't make you a bad spiritualist. Even the devas, as we saw, these demigods, they're very, very powerful. And the pressures of having to live under this demon, it was getting to them. They were having crises of faith. They were falling apart, but they kept praying. So even when you fall apart, even when you're angry and resentful and bitter and feeling envious and feeling all the things, and you think no spiritualist should be feeling all these things, even if you're dealing with all of the 7 deadly sins, right? Keep praying through it. That is the mark of a spiritualist. Not simply someone who has overcome all those things. How do we think they overcame it? Because they kept praying through it. It's the only way to overcome it. And the only way to overcome that resistance in the heart, that resentment, the bitterness, is to keep praying through it. Understanding that my heart feels like it's burning in agony. But you know what? I heard pine cones. In order to release the seeds in the pine cones, some of those pine cones have to be set on fire. And then they release the seeds, and then you get new pine trees. So when our hearts feel like they are burning in agony, can new seeds of blessings be released? Can we look at that fire not as an obstacle, but as a blessing? It's releasing seeds of faith in my heart. Because when the Lord pulls me through this, I will sing his glories from all the rooftops. As the Lord pulls me through this, I know he will never leave me. And I will be able to say with full-hearted conviction, with faith like a strong pillar, no, my Lord is real. I am a servant of that divine Lord who is my supreme friend and well-wisher. He's brought me through countless battles. I promise others that it will happen for them. But in order for us to be able to promise others that it will happen for them, it has to happen to us first. And so we might think, well, I don't want it to happen to me. Why should I pray these prayers? It's going to happen anyway. The obstacles are going to come anyway. At least if we are praying through them, we will see God's hand in it. And we will be able to cultivate that conviction and that firm faith. That firm faith is what gets God to appear before us. One of our friends is saying, the Lord is my strength. Absolutely. He is my strength. He is my everything. He is my will to keep going. He is my character. My Lord, he is my morals. He is my virtues. That supreme divine love is my religion. So now no longer am I sitting here identifying, clinging so strongly with either one religion or the other as a means that just tangles me up in religious politics, because that will happen. We serve an all-loving, inclusive, compassionate, kind, merciful, understanding, dear friend. And that Lord, he becomes everything to us. That Lord who comes in forms that are sometimes as an animal, sometimes as a person, sometimes man, sometimes woman, all of it combined. This is our supreme person, always so loving and gentle toward us. Our supreme person who is saying, I see your struggle, and I know you personally. I have seen your struggle for so long. I am working through your life. Please be patient. Because, as our friend Ashi said, this Lord is turning tests into testimonies. Please remember, your life story will become a blessing for someone else. All of the things that you are going through are not in vain. It is not mindless suffering. God sees every tear, every trembling breath. Every time our heart clenches with pain, God sees it and is reacting to it. We can have faith in that. And your life will become a testimony of God's greatness. It will become a blessing and a miracle to others. If we have just the courage to accept that fact, our lives become different so quickly. Yudhishthir shook his head uncomprehendingly. Hiranyakashipu attacked his own son. Why? Even the most ignorant show compassion to their children. Yes, let me explain, said Narada. The demon had 4 wonderful, well-qualified sons. The best of them was Prahlad, a pure devotee of Krishna and a reservoir of transcendental qualities. Indeed, all the attributes of a highly qualified Brahmin adorned him. Determined to know the absolute truth, he exhibited the highest moral character. He fully controlled his mind and senses. He was kind to everyone, having their best interest in mind. He menially served his respectable superiors and showed loving care to the poor, just like a father. He was like a brother to his equals, and he treated his teachers, spiritual masters, and god brothers as representatives of the Supreme Lord. Although he had all material assets, such as good education, wealth, beauty, and an aristocratic birth, he nevertheless was free of pride. Yudhishthir said, "How amazing, considering whose son he was." "Very true," affirmed Narada. "Although he was born into an atheistic family, he exhibited the characteristics of an advanced devotee from childhood. For example, he was undisturbed even when put into danger. He had no interest in those sections of the Vedas which teach how to increase one's material enjoyment. Devoid of worldly desires, he considered material gain useless. He controlled his senses and life air with steady spiritual intelligence and strong determination, and subdued all lusty desires. Learned saints and Vaishnavas still glorify his accomplishments. After realizing Krishna, he acquired the same exalted qualities as the Lord. So much so that today, in whatever assembly there is a discussion about saints and devotees, they always speak of Prahlad. Even the gods glorify him, although normally they disapprove of those born in atheistic families. No one can fully enumerate his transcendental qualities, which arise from his unflinching, spontaneous devotion to Krishna. He was a very great soul." So this just goes to show that no matter what family you are born in, you can always excel spiritually. There is no barrier to us excelling spiritually. Even if we think, "Oh, but I didn't come to God consciousness or spirituality at a young age," it's okay. It doesn't matter. It's totally fine. Whenever we come to our spiritual realization, it is a moment of celebration. Excelling in Krishna consciousness can take just one moment, and our lives can be made perfect. That's how easy it is to please Krishna. And so some of us might think, then what's the big deal? Why does it take so many years? Like, why does it take so long if we can please Krishna just in one moment and perfect our spiritual lives? And why isn't everyone perfecting their spiritual lives? The blockage is us. It is the self-sabotage. So even though we can perfect our lives in one moment, we don't stick with it. The fear comes back, the doubt comes back, the guilt comes back, the shame comes back. All of it comes back, and it clouds our minds. Who do you think you are? You think all this is real? You think you can just please God in one moment and that's that? You think God will love you forever? Do you know what you've done? Do you know who you have been? God can't possibly just redeem all of that in one moment. It's got to take longer than that, because no one can forgive anybody just that quickly, right? Even if people will forgive others, it has to take some work. Make them work for it. God is not a conditional lover like that. God's love is unconditional. It can work in just one moment, but it takes us to give our hearts again and again to that moment. It takes us. We are in the way. The ego is in the way. If we can remove that ego, allow that ego to pass on, then we really get to the heart of increasing our spirituality in leaps and bounds, moment by moment. And we see what happens when we give ourselves over to such spiritual surrender. People will talk about our glories for forever. Hiranyakashipu is trying to be immortal, but his son becomes immortal just because of his glorious activities. So Hiranyakashipu is trying all of these devious ways to get what Prahlad will get simply by being himself, simply by loving God with character and determination. That's it. So when we think, oh, if I give myself to a life of service, what do I get? You get immortality. You get all the things that everyone is hoping for. Yudhishthir said, when did he attain God realization? From the very beginning of his childhood, replied Narada. Prahlad always remembered Krishna. Unlike other children, he had no interest in childish play. He could not relate to materialists who were interested in sense gratification. Surely, said Yudhishthir, there were breaks in his meditation. He had to walk to school, sit in his class, eat his meals, speak with his teachers, and do other day-to-day business. Narada said, there was no interruption to his meditation on Krishna. The Lord oversaw his material activities with no need for Prahlad to give them a second thought. What do you mean? Asked Yudhishthir. So this is a good answer for everyone who asks, how can I go and do a job or go to school and all of these things and still dedicate my mind and thoughts to God? Right? As they say, you do your work and you give all the rest as an offering to God. And it's like, how do I do that? So let's see. Consider this example. Parents take care of their baby's every need. They bathe, dress, and feed him. The child need not have the least concern about anything. So it was with Krishna and Prahlad. You mean he was not conscious of the external world? Yes, that's right. Did he feel anything? Of course, said Narada. But all his emotions were connected to Krishna. For example, if in meditation he saw Krishna was far from him, he would cry out in anxiety. Then in his meditation he would see the Lord running to him, calling out, my dear child, do not cry, I am coming. Prahlad would dance in jubilation on hearing this, thinking, here is my Lord is coming. Sometimes in complete ecstasy, Prahlad would imitate Krishna's pastimes. Sometimes when he could not see Krishna, he would close his eyes in grief, thinking, where shall I go? Where can I find my Krishna? Then he would feel the touch of Krishna's hand and see him in the core of his heart. He would become motionless, overwhelmed with spiritual ecstasy, and tears would glide down from his half-closed eyes. How did he attain such exalted devotion? By receiving the association of perfect, unalloyed devotees who had no attraction to the enjoyments of this world. So one of the keys to us keeping our minds fixed on Krishna, even while we do everything else, is one, to really remember Krishna often. Have conversations with God. As you go about your workday, talk to God. Oh, here I am. I arrived on time, Lord. Here I am. Thank you for helping. Or, oof, I didn't arrive on time, Lord, and tomorrow we're going to try and do better. Please help me. And as we go through our day, we can have this conversation. We can think about God, especially because God is seated in the hearts of everyone. And so sometimes when you have a problematic day at work, you can look at the other people you're dealing with and think, there is a Krishna in their heart. My best friend is in their heart. They may not know it, but I know it. And just that thought helps us. We still might not know how to handle that situation perfectly, but we are remembering Krishna, and then Krishna begins to take over. Bringing Krishna into every situation of our life helps Krishna take over our actions. It helps Krishna guide us in the right ways. How incredible. And then, in order to help us, we keep coming to these different sanghas, these different gatherings, where we have other devotees who will encourage us and remind us of what the ultimate goal is. So this is Prahlad. You know, he received the association of devotees, and then he was like addicted to Krishna. We want to become addicted to spiritual knowledge. Yet he was born into a demoniac society, said Yudhishthir. All his associates were atheists and of low character. Did this not adversely affect him? Narada laughed and shook his head. Quite the opposite. Seeing him in spiritual ecstasy, others, even the spiritually ignorant, became purified and experienced transcendental bliss, like him. Wonderful, exclaimed Yudhishthir. So as I said, your life becomes an example for someone else. How you are able to just be. People start wondering, why are you always so happy? The world's miserable. What do you have that is making you so self-fulfilled? I need to find out what that is. It becomes so attractive when we are steeped in our meditation and in our God realization. They start thinking, what do you have? And then we start telling them, I have a relationship with God. They say, how can I get one? You already have one. We just have to reawaken it. And so we start telling this ultimate secret, right? Everybody's looking for the secret to the whole universe. The secret to the whole universe is we all have a relationship with the Supreme Person. We just have to reawaken it. And that changes everything. It gives us every single advantage, helps us overcome anything and everything. And so, as one of our friends is saying, as we continue our conversations with God, commonly known as prayer, right? He will listen and answer and even initiate the conversation if we are willing and accepting of it. Our friends are giving great takeaways this day. Let's finish up. Wonderful, exclaimed Yudhishthir. My dear Yudhishthir, it was this son Prahlad who Hiranyakashipu tortured. Yudhishthir looked incredulous. It is astonishing that anyone would want to harm such a holy saint, especially their son. O best of the celestial sages, please tell me why Hiranyakashipu was so antagonistic toward him. Parents often chastise disobedient children for their benefit, but I've never heard of a father maliciously attacking their child. As Prahlad had all good qualities, he must have been obedient, well-behaved, and respectful to his father. How could his father have hated him so much that he tried to kill him? I shall explain, said Narada. And that is the end of that chapter. So come back tomorrow, same time, same place, friends, and we will continue with the great lessons from the life of Prahlad Maharaj, who is spoken about even today, whose example of firm faith and conviction gives us hope, even while he was tortured. So we have to find out what the torture is all about, why, and through what means. Because we sometimes feel like we are being tortured. Sometimes it's all up here. Sometimes it's through our actions, But we feel like we're being tortured. So what do we do when we feel like we're being tortured? We'll find out what Prahlad did and see if somehow we can integrate that into our own lives. Until then, we are, as a friend said, we are sitting on the edge of this cliffhanger, which is a good place to be. Keeps our minds engrossed in the story. What will happen next? So if you have the book, don't read on. Let's experience it together tomorrow. And if you don't have the book, get it. But it is fun just to sit back and relax and hear it being read. So thank you for being here with me. Thank you for creating such a beautiful, beautiful sacred space. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Prahlad Maharaj ki jai. All glories to our illustrious assembly of spiritual seekers that come to listen to me even when I might not have so much faith in myself. You all help me. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your encouragement. I will constantly be looking for ways, better ways, more ways for us to connect, for more support, for more encouragement, all of the above. I'll see you all tomorrow. Shri Radha Govinda Dev ki jai. See you then. Hare Krishna.
Her Grace Achita Gopi ki jai.